Have you ever felt that your home, even after a thorough cleaning, still carries a heavy energy? Have you wondered why some homes exude peace and harmony while others always seem burdened, even when apparently clean? And most intriguingly, did you know that Pope John Paul II revealed a profound secret about the connection between cleaning our home and the blessings we receive in our life? Just imagine, many families spend years struggling with recurring problems, financial difficulties, and endless conflicts without realizing that the solution could lie in something as simple as how they care for their home. What many don't realize is that there's a spiritual science behind cleaning, something that goes far beyond simply dusting or organizing furniture. In an encounter with the faithful in 1995, Pope John Paul II surprised everyone when he shared an ancient wisdom about how the forgotten corners of our home reflect the forgotten corners of our soul. This revelation completely changed the life of Teresa, a mother of three from adaptação, Mante Belo Horizonte, pois não precisa de adaptação, who was on the verge of despair with financial and family problems that seemed unsolvable. What I'm about to reveal today isn't just a theory, but a sacred knowledge that has transformed homes and lives around the world. These are 7 mistakes that most of us make when cleaning our homes, mistakes that prevent divine blessings from flowing freely to our family. And the most incredible thing, correcting these errors is much simpler than you imagine. Pope John Paul II, in his teachings on the spirituality of everyday life, often emphasized how our simplest actions can have a profound significance. Prayer is the most powerful weapon we have, he said. It is the key to the heart of God. But if you know his words about how our physical environment affects our spiritual life, what we do in our earthly home reflects our preparation for our heavenly home. Adaptação. O original em português é uma paráfrase das falas do Papa. Então mantive a mesma abordagem. This wisdom didn't arise from nowhere. In fact, it's part of a tradition preserved through generations. The ancient Benedictine monasteries already practiced cleaning as an act of devotion. For them, each clean corner represented a purified heart. Each object in order symbolized a soul in harmony with God's will. The story of Teresa, which I mentioned earlier, is just one among thousands. After years of struggle, she discovered these principles through her grandmother, who had learned from a priest who studied directly with John Paul II. Teresa began to apply these practices in her home and, in just 3 months, noticed surprising changes. Her husband got a better job, her children began to behave more harmoniously, and even plants that had never bloomed began to give flowers. What makes this knowledge so powerful is that it connects the physical with the spiritual, the visible with the invisible. As John Paul II taught, our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, and our home is the temple of our family. When we purify and organize our physical space, following these sacred principles, we are literally opening the doors for divine blessings to enter. Adaptação. Mantive Holy Spirit, pois é a tradução mais comum e aceita para Espírito Santo. Today, I will share with you the 7 fundamental mistakes that block these blessings and how to correct them simply and effectively. If you are facing difficulties in any area of your life, whether financial, family, health, or emotional, this knowledge may be the key you were missing to transform your reality. If this knowledge is touching your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs these blessings and subscribe to our channel to continue receiving these revelations that can transform your life and your home. First mistake, the forgotten corners. The first mistake that blocks blessings in our home is something that Pope John Paul II called the obscured corners of the soul. These are the forgotten corners of our house. Have you ever noticed how there are always those little corners that we rarely clean? Behind heavy furniture, the top of tall cabinets, that little space between the refrigerator and the wall. These places seem insignificant, but they carry a profound spiritual symbolism. John Paul II taught that what we neglect in our environment reflects what we neglect in our inner life. Each dusty corner represents an area of our life that we are avoiding facing. It could be an unresolved relationship, an undeveloped talent, or a divine calling that we are ignoring. The story of Teresa illustrates this perfectly. For years, she never cleaned behind a large cabinet in the living room. When she finally moved the furniture, she found not only an impressive amount of dust, but also a Saint Benedict medal that her grandmother had lost years before. Interestingly, her financial difficulties began exactly when the medal was lost. After recovering it, cleaning and honoring that space, unexpected opportunities began to arise in her life. It's not superstition, explained the Pope. It's a spiritual principle. What is hidden and neglected in the darkness cannot receive the light of divine blessings. Think about it. How can we expect clarity in our lives when we allow corners of our house to remain in oblivion and dirt? A lady from Adaptação Manter Brasília, pois não precisa de adaptação, discovered this in the most surprising way. For years, she suffered from chronic insomnia. Doctors, medicines, therapies, nothing worked. Until one day, following these teachings, she decided to thoroughly clean the corners of her room. Behind the headboard of her bed, a place she had never cleaned, she found old cobwebs and a stagnant energy that seemed to weigh on the environment. On the first night after cleaning this space, she slept soundly for the first time in years. Pope John Paul II taught us that external cleaning should reflect our search for inner purity. When we clean these forgotten corners, we are not just removing dust. We are symbolically declaring that we no longer want dark areas in our lives. We are ready to face what we were avoiding and allow divine light to reach all aspects of our existence. How to do this practically? Start by identifying the most neglected corners of your home, those places you think nobody sees anyway, or I'll clean another day. Set aside a specific time to move furniture, use a ladder if necessary, and finally free these spaces from the accumulation of stagnant energy. As you clean, pray, or declare positive intentions for the areas of your life that also need light and clarity. Second mistake, the neglected kitchen. The second mistake that prevents blessings from flowing into our home is neglecting the kitchen. Pope John Paul II often spoke about the importance of the family table as a domestic altar, where not only the body is nourished, but also the soul. The kitchen, in the Christian tradition, represents the heart of the home, the place where food, a symbol of God's provision, is prepared with love to nourish those we love. Adaptação. Troquei Catholic tradition por Christian tradition para abranger público mais amplo, mantendo a essência da mensagem. Have you noticed how some kitchens convey a sense of welcome and abundance, while others always seem chaotic, even when apparently organized? The secret lies in the energy we allow to accumulate in this sacred space. Dirty dishes left in the sink overnight, spoiled food forgotten in the refrigerator, broken utensils kept out of habit. All this creates what the Pope called obstructions to the divine flow of abundance. An impressive story comes from Carmen, a resident of Adaptação Manter Recife, pois não precisa de adaptação. Her family faced constant financial difficulties, even with everyone working. While participating in a spiritual retreat, she learned about these practices and decided to completely transform her kitchen. She discarded broken utensils, cleaned every corner of the refrigerator, organized the cabinets, and began to keep the sink always empty before going to bed. In less than 2 months, her husband received an unexpected promotion, and her son got a scholarship, blessings that had seemed blocked for years. The way we treat what God gives us determines what we will receive in the future, taught John Paul II. When we maintain a neglected kitchen, we are symbolically saying that we do not value the provisions we have already received. How can we expect greater abundance when we don't properly care for what we already have? The most neglected aspect in modern kitchens is water. Leaky faucets, standing water, damp dishcloths left piled up. All this creates what the ancients called stagnant energy. Water represents flow, renewal, and emotions. A kitchen with water-related problems often reflects a family with emotional blockages. Peter, a businessman from adaptação, Mante Porto Alegre, pois não precisa de adaptação, couldn't understand why his businesses always started well but ended up stagnant. After learning about these principles, he realized that his kitchen had a leaking pipe for months, something he always put off repairing. The day after the plumbing was fixed, he received a call about a business opportunity he had given up on. The coincidence was undeniable. To transform the energy of your kitchen, start with a deep cleaning of the refrigerator. Discard expired foods and organize the healthy ones. Fix any leaks and make sure the water flows freely. Before going to bed, leave the sink empty and clean, symbolizing that you are ready to receive new blessings the next day. If possible, keep a small plant or fresh herbs in the kitchen, representing life and continuous growth. If these revelations are making sense to you, don't keep them to yourself. Share this video with family and friends who need this wisdom. Subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to receive more transformative teachings that can change your life and your home forever. Third mistake: broken objects. The third mistake that keeps blessings away from your home is something that Pope John Paul II frequently addressed in his reflections on attachment and liberation, keeping broken objects at home. That which is broken and which we refuse to repair or release, he said, becomes a symbol of broken areas in our own lives that we refuse to face. Think about the broken objects you keep at home. That cup with the broken handle, the clock that no longer works, the cracked mirror, the wobbly chair. For many, keeping these items seems harmless, even sentimental. It belonged to my grandmother. It has emotional value. I'll fix it someday. But the spiritual truth is that each broken object we keep creates an energetic pattern of permanent breakage in our lives. The story of Maria, a teacher from Adaptação Manter Florianópolis, pois não precisa de adaptação, perfectly illustrates this principle. For years, she kept an old broken lamp that had belonged to her mother. Although it no longer worked, it had sentimental value and was displayed on the living room shelf. During that same period, Maria faced a constant pattern of relationships that started well but always broke at the same point when it came to a more serious commitment. After learning about this principle at a spiritual retreat, Maria made a difficult decision. She thanked the lamp for the memories, took a picture to preserve the memory, and then respectfully discarded it. What happened next surprised everyone. In 3 months, she met someone special, and for the first time, a relationship managed to overcome the point where all the others had ended. John Paul II taught that our ability to receive new blessings is directly linked to our willingness to release what no longer serves us. This doesn't mean ruthlessly discarding objects with sentimental value. Instead, it's an invitation to honestly assess, is this broken object serving a positive purpose in my life, or is it subconsciously reinforcing a pattern of breakage that I no longer want? A particularly moving case is that of Antonio, a businessman from Adaptação Manter Rio de Janeiro, pois não precisa de adaptação. His family business seemed cursed. Whenever he reached a certain level of success, something happened to bring everything down. After learning about these principles, he decided to take a complete inventory of his home and office. To his surprise, he found more than 40 broken items that he kept for various reasons. He repaired those that could be repaired and respectfully released the others. In the same year, his business finally surpassed the level that for years had been an invisible barrier. The most damaging broken objects are those in constant use: the pen that fails, the glasses patched with tape, the car that always presents problems but is never properly repaired. Every time we interact with these objects, we unconsciously reinforce a message to the universe. I accept brokenness as a normal part of my life. Take an inventory of your home today. Identify all the broken objects and make a decision for each one. Repair properly, not temporary improvisations, or release with gratitude. By doing this, you are declaring, I am ready to receive the complete, the whole, the full in my life. Fourth mistake, not ventilating spaces. The fourth mistake that blocks blessings in our home is something that Pope John Paul II frequently mentioned when speaking about spiritual renewal. Not adequately ventilating the spaces in the house. Fresh air, he taught, is not only a physical necessity, but a symbol of the Holy Spirit that renews all things. When we keep our house closed for days, we create an environment where energy stagnates, just like our own lives. Have you ever entered a house that, even clean, felt heavy? Or noticed how you feel invigorated when you open the windows after days of rain? It's not just an impression. Stagnant air accumulates energies, as the ancient monasteries taught, opening all the windows at dawn to let in the grace of a new day. Adaptação. Mantive a referência aos mosteiros antigos por sua relevância cultural e espiritual. The story of Lucia, a lawyer from Adaptação Monte Salvador, pois não precisa de adaptação, is particularly revealing. For years, she suffered from severe asthma and allergies, as well as a constant lack of inspiration in her career. For fear of worsening her allergies, she kept the windows of her house always closed and the air conditioning on. After learning about the spiritual importance of ventilation, she gradually began to open the windows for 15 minutes every morning, using that time for prayer. Surprisingly, instead of worsening, her allergies decreased, and creative ideas for difficult cases began to arise naturally, as if there was finally space for new inspirations. The wind blows wherever it pleases, said John Paul II, quoting scripture, so is everyone born of the Spirit. Adaptação. Adicionado referência bíblica, John 3:8, para ressonância com o público-alvo. The ventilation of our house has a direct connection to our ability to receive new inspirations, opportunities, and blessings. When the air does not circulate, we create a closed environment not only for germs, but also for the divine blessings that desire to find their way to us. An impressive case occurred in Adaptação Monte Curitiba, pois não precisa de adaptação, with the Oliveira family. After the passing of the patriarch, the family entered a period of profound sadness. Unconsciously, they began to keep the house increasingly closed, as if they wanted to preserve the presence of their loved one. The house became heavy, and a series of problems, health, financial, relationships, began to affect all members. It was when the youngest daughter learned about these principles and gently began to open the windows daily, declaring, "We allow new blessings to enter our family." The transformation in the following weeks was noticed by all the neighbors. The energy of the family changed completely. John Paul II taught that renewing the air is renewing hope. Areas of the house that rarely receive fresh air, basements, attics, storage rooms, often correspond to stagnant areas in our lives. It's no coincidence that people with big, unfulfilled dreams often have entire rooms in their homes that are rarely opened or ventilated. A powerful practice is to establish a routine of opening all the windows for at least 15 minutes every morning, regardless of the weather, except in extreme cases. As the air circulates, visualize or pray that new opportunities, inspirations, and blessings can also circulate freely in your life. Pay special attention to the least used areas of the house. Make sure there are no forgotten corners where the air is never renewed. If these revelations are touching your heart, share this video with someone who needs these blessings. Subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to continue receiving these sacred insights that can transform your home and your life. Fifth mistake: storing things under the bed. The fifth mistake that prevents blessings from flowing fully into our lives is related to a profound teaching that Pope John Paul II shared about rest and renewal, storing things under the bed. The place where we rest, he said, should be a space of peace and renewal, not a repository of what we want to hide or postpone. Think about it. The bed is where we spend approximately 1/3 of our lives. It's where our body and spirit are renewed, where we dream, where we are most vulnerable. The ancient monasteries always kept the beds raised from the floor and the space below completely free, symbolizing that rest should be pure and unhindered. The story of Renata, a businesswoman, from Adaptação, manter Manaus, pois não precisa de adaptação, perfectly illustrates the power of this principle. For years, she suffered from chronic insomnia and frequent nightmares. Doctors prescribed various medications, but nothing completely solved the problem. One day, while tidying up her room, she realized how much she had accumulated under her bed. Boxes with old documents, including unresolved lawsuits, overdue bills, and even memories of a toxic relationship. Upon learning about this principle, she decided to completely empty the space under her bed. On the first night after this change, she slept soundly without medication for the first time in years. The nightmares gradually decreased in the following weeks. What we hide under the bed, taught John Paul II, reflects what we hide in our subconscious. Many people use this space to store things they don't want to face. Problematic financial documents, broken objects that they can't decide whether to repair or discard, gifts they didn't like but feel guilty about donating. Each of these items carries an energy that directly affects our ability to rest and consequently our strength to receive the blessings that God desires to give us. A notable case is that of Marcelo and Patricia, a couple from Adaptação, Mante São Paulo, pois não precisa de adaptação, who had been trying to have children for 7 years without success. After consultations with various specialists and treatments, nothing solved the problem. A friend told them about these spiritual principles, and they noticed that they kept several boxes with objects from deceased relatives under their bed, literally carrying the weight of the past. During their rest, after cleaning this space and finding appropriate places for these items, Patricia became pregnant naturally in just 3 months, to the surprise of their doctors. The space under the bed is directly related to our subconscious. John Paul II taught that to receive new blessings, we must create space not only in our house, but in our mind and heart. When this space is congested with objects, especially those loaded with difficult memories or incomplete tasks, our subconscious remains agitated even during sleep. The ideal practice is to keep the space under the bed completely empty, allowing energy to flow freely. If this is not possible due to space limitations, use this place only for items related to rest. Clean sheets, blankets, extra pillows. Absolutely avoid storing objects such as financial documents, old photos, memories of past relationships, broken objects, or items that provoke negative feelings. By releasing the space under your bed, consciously declare, "I am creating space for complete and restorative rest. I allow my subconscious to release burdens of the past and open itself to the new blessings that are to come. Sixth mistake, accumulating trash. The sixth mistake that prevents divine blessings from fully flowing into our lives is something that Pope John Paul II addressed when speaking about spiritual liberation, the accumulation of trash in our home. What no longer serves, he said, but we insist on keeping close to us, becomes a symbol of the sin we refuse to abandon. Have you ever noticed how some houses always seem to have overflowing trash cans? Or how some people take days to take the trash out? This seemingly harmless habit creates what the ancients called a blockage to the new. In spiritual tradition, trash represents what has already fulfilled its purpose and needs to be released so that something new can take its place. The story of Ricardo, a university professor from Adaptação mantive fortaleza, pois não precisa de adaptação, shows the power of this truth. For years, he faced creative blocks in his academic career. Ideas simply didn't flow, and he couldn't finish his research projects. One day, while visiting his home office, his sister noticed something curious. There were 3 trash cans, all completely full, and piles of papers that should have been discarded long ago. After learning about these principles, Ricardo did a complete cleanup, emptied all the trash cans, and established the practice of never letting the trash accumulate for more than a day. In the following weeks, ideas for his research began to emerge with a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. To receive the new, taught John Paul II, we must be willing to release the old. The trash in our house creates fields of stagnant energy. Literally, we are living with what no longer serves us, with what is already dead. This pattern unconsciously reflects in our lives, causing us to remain stuck in situations, relationships, and thought patterns that should have been released long ago. A particularly impressive case occurred with the Santos family from Adaptação. Mantive Brasília, pois não precisa de adaptação. After the death of the patriarch, his widow developed a pattern of accumulating trash, especially papers and packaging. The family attributed this to grief, but over time they realized that something else was happening. Financial problems began to arise for all family members, as if there was a blockage affecting everyone. When the eldest son learned about these spiritual principles, he organized a respectful cleanup in his mother's house. In the following weeks, unexpected opportunities arose for various family members. The most harmful is organic waste, that which is in the process of decomposition. John Paul II compared this to unconfessed sin that rots the soul. Keeping this type of trash at home for longer than necessary creates an energetic field that attracts more situations of decomposition to our lives. Projects that start but never materialize, relationships that slowly deteriorate, opportunities that arise only to wither before bearing fruit. The ideal practice is to empty the trash cans daily, especially those containing organic material. Establish an efficient system of separating recyclables, symbolizing your ability to transform even what seems useless into something with a new purpose. When taking the trash out of the house, make a brief prayer or affirmation, such as, "Just as I release what no longer serves, I open space for new blessings in my life." If these revelations are transforming your understanding of the connection between your home and your spiritual life, share this video with people you love. Subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to continue receiving these precious insights that can change your life. Seventh mistake, excess of chemicals. The seventh and last mistake that prevents divine blessings from fully flowing into our lives is one that Pope John Paul II addressed when speaking about respect for divine creation, the excessive use of chemicals in our home. What we create artificially in excess, he said, can interfere with God's natural work in our lives. Have you ever entered a house that although seemingly very clean, had such a strong artificial smell that it was even unpleasant. This sensation is not just physical. Ancient spiritual teachings show us that the excess of chemicals creates an invisible barrier that hinders the perception of subtle divine inspirations. The story of Beatriz, an artist from Adaptação, mantive Porto Alegre, pois não precisa de adaptação, perfectly illustrates this principle. For years, she suffered from creative block, even though she had recognized talent. Her house was impeccably clean. She used the strongest products on the market, powerful disinfectants and air fresheners in every room. During a spiritual retreat, she learned about these principles and decided to make a gradual transition to natural products. She began to clean with vinegar, baking soda, and essential oils. To her surprise, in the following weeks, creative ideas began to flow like never before. "It's as if I could finally hear my inner voice," she reported. John Paul II frequently spoke about the wisdom of sacred simplicity. He taught that the more artificially we alter our environment, the more difficult it becomes to perceive the subtle presence of God in our daily lives. Strong chemicals, especially the perfumed ones, create a sensory layer that can numb our spiritual intuition, that gentle voice that often guides us to the blessings that God has for us. A notable case was that of the Martins family. From Adaptação, mantive Rio de Janeiro, pois não precisa de adaptação. Their 8-year-old daughter suffered from constant nightmares and unexplained night fears. Doctors and psychologists were consulted without significant results. It was when the mother learned about these principles and noticed something. The girls' room was the one that received the most chemicals. Powerful disinfectants, plug-in air fresheners, perfumed sprays on the sheets. By replacing all these products with natural alternatives and ventilating the room well daily, the nightmares decreased drastically in just 2 weeks. Nature speaks the language of God, taught John Paul II. Strong chemicals not only affect our physical health, but can also create a spiritual static that interferes with our ability to tune in to divine blessings. Particularly sensitive people, children, artists, those with intuitive gifts, are especially affected by this chemical excess. A powerful practice is to begin the gradual transition to natural cleaning products. Diluted white vinegar in water for glass and surfaces, baking soda for deeper cleaning, essential oils such as lavender, lemon, or rosemary to aromatize naturally. In addition to creating a physically healthier environment, you will be removing invisible barriers that may be blocking divine inspirations, opportunities, and blessings destined for you and your family. As you make this transition, consciously declare, "I am creating a home that honors God's natural work. I open my senses to perceive the subtle blessings He sends daily." Over time, you may notice greater mental clarity, more meaningful dreams, and a greater ability to perceive synchronicities and divine opportunities in your life. A special testimony comes from Carlos, a doctor from Adaptação, mantive Belo Horizonte, pois não precisa de adaptação. He suffered from chronic migraines that medications only temporarily relieved. After learning about these principles, he realized that his bathroom was practically a chemical laboratory, dozens of products with potent artificial fragrances. Gradually, he replaced everything with natural alternatives. In 2 weeks, his migraines decreased significantly, and in 2 months, they became rare events. The most surprising thing, he reports, was how my medical intuition improved. I began to perceive subtleties in my patients that had previously gone unnoticed. The transition doesn't have to be radical or immediate. Start with the room where you spend the most time or where you feel the energy is heaviest. Try a simple recipe: 1/2 liter of water, 1/4 cup of white vinegar, and 10 drops of lemon or lavender essential oil. Use this mixture to clean surfaces and observe how the environment transforms. This is not just a physical change, but a spiritual declaration. You are choosing what is natural, what is in harmony with God's creation. Now that we know the 7 mistakes that block blessings in our home, it's time to reflect on how to apply this sacred knowledge in our daily lives. Pope John Paul II always emphasized that knowledge without action is like a seed that is never planted. These revelations are not just for us to admire, but to completely transform our relationship with our home and consequently with our spiritual life. Imagine for a moment what your home would be like if you consciously applied these principles to every corner, every object, every cleaning practice. Visualize the energy flowing freely, the blockages being removed, and divine blessings, finding an open path to you and your family. This is not a fantasy. It is a real possibility that is within your reach. The transformation begins with a simple exercise. Choose just one of the principles that most resonated with you. Perhaps it's cleaning the forgotten corners, or releasing broken objects, or ventilating your house daily. Focus on this single aspect for a week, applying it consciously with intention and prayer. Pay close attention to the subtle changes that begin to occur not only in the physical environment, but in how you feel, in the coincidences that begin to arise, in the small blessings that appear unexpectedly. Teresa, that mother from Adaptação, mantive Belo Horizonte, pois não precisa de adaptação, that I mentioned at the beginning, started exactly like this, with just one principle. She chose to focus on the kitchen, keeping it impeccably clean and organized, especially before going to bed. In the beginning, it seemed like just one more task, she says, but after a few days, I realized that I was eagerly awaiting that moment. It became a sacred ritual, an act of gratitude for what we had and of preparation to receive more blessings. This simple act was the beginning of a transformation that eventually extended to her entire home and her entire life. The power of these principles lies in their simplicity. They do not require complicated rituals or esoteric knowledge. They are practices accessible to anyone, based on the spiritual wisdom transmitted through generations and confirmed by John Paul II. They are the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, between our daily actions and our connection with the divine. Allow yourself to be guided by intuition when applying these teachings. Perhaps you feel an impulse to start with a specific room or to deal first with certain objects. This intuition is part of the divine wisdom operating in you, showing where the most necessary transformations should begin. Trust this process and observe how, gradually, your home becomes not just a clean space, but a true sanctuary where blessings can flow freely. We have reached the end of this journey of revelations, but in fact, we are only at the beginning of a new phase in your life. Pope John Paul II taught us that every small change towards purity and order in our external environment creates a greater opening for divine grace in our internal environment. The principles I shared today are not mere cleaning techniques. They are spiritual keys that can unlock blessings long held back in your life. Think for a moment about all the areas where you want to see changes. Health, finances, relationships, inner peace, spiritual growth. Now imagine that through actions as simple as cleaning forgotten corners or releasing broken objects, you are literally opening channels for these blessings to flow to you. Isn't it incredible how God gives us such accessible tools to transform our reality? The story of Teresa, which I shared throughout this video, continues to inspire families across. Adaptação, adaptei Brasil para The Globe, pois a mensagem se destina agora a público maior. Today, 3 years after starting to apply these principles, she lives a completely different reality. Her family thrives, her home has become a haven of peace that visitors always comment on, and she herself has become a channel of blessings. For her community, teaching these practices to other families in need. I want to invite you to be part of this transformation. Start today, choose one of the 7 principles and apply it consciously in your home. No matter how small the initial step, the important thing is to take the first step with faith and intention. As John Paul II said, "Be not afraid." Even if it seems too simple to solve complex problems, trust in the power of small acts done with great love and faith. If this knowledge has touched your heart, do not keep it to yourself. Share this video with family and friends who may be facing difficulties that seem unsolvable. Sometimes, the key that someone is desperately looking for is hidden in the simplest truths, such as these that we have shared today. Subscribe to our channel to continue receiving these sacred revelations that can transform your life and your home. In the coming weeks, we will delve deeper into each of these principles, with specific practices, powerful prayers, and inspiring testimonies from people who have seen their lives transformed. And most importantly, return to the comments of this video to share your own journey. Which principle did you choose to apply first? What changes have you begun to notice? Your testimony may be exactly what another person needs to read to find hope and inspiration to begin their own transformation. Remember the words of Pope John Paul II. Holiness is not a luxury for the few, but a simple duty for all of us. Similarly, a home that attracts divine blessings is not a privilege for the few, but a possibility within reach of all who apply these principles with faith and perseverance. May your home truly become an open channel for all the blessings that God desires to pour into your life.